He's mowing his lawn as it's crazy.
It is really the afternoon zoo Friday today.
Yeah, it really is.
We got to play that Todd Rundgren song, "Bang on the Drum." You know?
Yeah, kicking off your drive home on a Friday.
And I can't
don't
even
wanna
say
work
long
either,
time
folks.
listener, first time caller. I have to say what, second or third time caller or something like that.
Wait, couldn't you play Cars? Who's going to drive you home? Like for your
Yeah,
Yeah, but that doesn't really get you ready, you know.
Working for the weekend, another good
that's
one.
good.
Yeah,
Lover Boy.
Friday on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one.
Rock and Roll Weekend, Sammy Hagar.
SATURDAY.
Bay City Rollers.
All right for fighting.
A lot of Saturday songs, in fact.
Indeed. Not so many Thursday songs. A few.
No.
Well,
Yeah.
you could tell like you've
Thursday.
reached middle age when you look at the weekend. You think, sleep.
Not even, man. Oh my gosh. Sometimes my weekends are more busy than my week.
Well,
Friday, I'm in love.
you have a lot of moving parts to your family.
Yeah, I do.
You have a lot of family.
And then we could play Rebecca Black Friday.
Front seat, back seat.
Gosh, remember that?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
crazy, right?
I mean, it's not that I've completely forgotten because she was like part of some YouTube look back.
Yes.
2018, and everyone was mad or something. But yeah, I mean, when that song actually was popular, it everyone
got
had
so
a meltdown
popular.
about it.
She ended up on like partial tour with Katy Perry. Didn't
Really?
she? Yeah.
I think I remember.
I just remember everyone being really mean about how horrible it was. But it was
And
also
had any other
catchy.
songs, or if somebody had written her something. So
Well,
that
the guy who did it, that's his job. That's his business. He makes,
Right.
And he did another one called "I Like Chinese Food."
Yes, I love that one.
It's really terrible.
He's in that video too.
He's in it, and he sticks his finger in a little cup of sweet and sour sauce.
Yeah,
but he's
And he
wearing a
talks about
Panda
Panda
suit.
Express.
It's just.
Then we go to Panda Express. By the way,
Reminder to the video folks watching, we will be moving the video to Twitch on June 3rd. Moving the video to twitch.tv/gooddayinternet. Twitch.tv/gooddayinternet June 3rd. Live video. On-demand video will stay on YouTube. Don't worry about that. The live video. Oh my gosh, I thought that was a sound effect. It's him again.
No, I'm gonna mute that guy.
Wait, is that
By
a
the way,
cow?
Sarah, your hair looks really nice today. by the way.
Thank you. I washed it.
Oh, that's
It's
a
funny.
start.
Every once in a while, someone will be like, "Your hair looks good," and it's always on a day that I've washed it, which I do every other day.
There you
But
go. All right.
it's never the non-washed day that anyone's like, "Looks really good." So maybe I should wash it every day. But who's got the time?
No. Don't wash it every day.
You can't wash it every day. You're gonna dry it out. And it's gonna get stringy.
Well,
like I have Asian hair, so it's straw to begin with. But
my hair is quite dry as well.
wait, is that pole position on the?
Yeah, that means it's time to get the show started.
Oh my gosh, that's new too. What are you
That's
doing?
new to me.
Pole position came out in 78.
I've never done that before, Len. That's
Oh,
why
okay.
Yeah, we're all like, what is that?
All right.
I love that though. That's cool.
Len, would you like to read line 6 today?
What?
Yeah.
Why does Len get all the good stuff?
Wow.
He gets Norm Glomsky.
Norm Glomsky's okay. Yeah.
All right. You good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you need your motivation or are you good?
No, I think I can do this. I'm like really I'm honored.
Yeah, no, please. It's been too long in coming. All right, here we go. Shelly, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. 3, 2.
Norm Glomsky has supported independent tech news directly for 5 years. Be like Norm. Become a DTNS member at patreon.com/DTNS.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, May 24th, 2019. In Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
It's my son's 7th birthday. I'm Len Peralta.
Woo, happy birthday, Len, son.
I have no son but 2 daughters. I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
And joining us today, author and podcaster, web editor, and segment producer at the Texas Standard, Shelly Brisbin, back on the show. Welcome back, Shelly.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I don't have a catchphrase prepared.
That's okay. It is not required.
Right.
Catchphrase optional, always.
Next time, I'll come with one. I promise.
Of course. Shelly's going to update us on how things are going in the tech world regarding accessibility. We've had a lot of the recent conferences like Google I/O and Microsoft Build. Going to talk about that in a little bit. Let's start with a few tech things you should know.
The Wall Street Journal sources say that Snap is in talks with Sony, Universal, and Warner to license song catalogs for the Snapchat app. This would give its users the rights to include music in their posts, similar to how TikTok and Facebook already do. The rights would be limited to inclusion in posts, so it does not seem that Snap has ambitions to create a music service.
iFixit published the results of its teardown of the new MacBook Pro keyboards and found the material that covers the key switch is now nylon instead of the complex polymer.
The mystery material.
So it's put on its nylons. Also, the metal dome switch underneath each key shows some evidence of being made of maybe a different alloy, possibly getting a different heat treatment, possibly both. And that's it. That's the change.
Poland has submitted a complaint to the European Court of Justice against copyright rules that were adopted back in April. These are the rules that would require large companies to show good faith efforts to prevent the upload of copyright infringing works and payments for using news snippets. Poland argues that the filtering requirement would lay the foundation for preventative censorship, which it says is forbidden by the Polish Constitution and EU treaties.
Keep an eye on that one. And the SD Association, which governs the specs of SD cards, has barred Huawei from being a member due to U.S. trade restrictions. That means future Huawei phones will not be allowed to be made with SD card support. Doesn't mean that current Huawei phones will lose support, though. They'll be fine. Not to worry, though. Huawei has its own proprietary nano memory cards, which apparently it's already using in a bunch of its newer devices. So that won't be a big switch for them. Let's talk a little bit more about Facebook making their own crypto coin.
Let's do that. Facebook has spoken to Bank of England Governor Mark Carney about plans to set up its own cryptocurrency. The BBC reports that Facebook plans to use its own global coin to set up digital payments system in around a dozen countries by the first quarter of 2020. The system being developed under the name Project Libra, yay, go Libras, would set up as a Swiss-based association and then partner with banks and brokers to let people change currency into digital coins without needing a bank account of their own. The coin would reportedly be pegged to a basket of strong currencies like dollars and euros and yen. Facebook has also discussed its plans with the U.S. Treasury regarding fighting fraud and with Western Union as a potential client.
Yeah, this is very interesting in a couple of ways. One, the way a cryptocurrency could become the most successful cryptocurrency that everybody keeps trying to guess is going to happen could be a website that has a couple billion users implements it. So it could be a boost in that direction. Also, it strikes me that Facebook, if they're going to follow up on their promises to make things more private and keep you from being tracked even by themselves, maybe, they will need other revenue sources besides advertising income. And, possibly encouraging money transfers would be a big way to do that, especially in areas of the world like India, Southeast Asia, et cetera, that rely on money transfers quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that Facebook would want to take advantage of a very large piece of the population who might not have a bank account, and Facebook could get something out of this. My first question when I was kind of digesting the story was, all right, well, if you're a bank and you need some sort of a transaction fee, I guess that just happens with Facebook rather than the customer ultimately. My first reaction was, well, why would a bank want to do that? But, you mentioned to me, Tom, before the show, well, banks want to work with people who can't have bank accounts for whatever reason as well, because they want more customers somehow.
Shelly, what do you make of this?
Well, I feel like Facebook has to do something like this, both for the reasons that you said, Tom, about needing to find other sources of revenue. And also, it seems like if they want people to stay on their platform, they have to facilitate this so that if people want to use crypto for payments, Facebook is an option for them and maybe the option for them. I suspect that if it's not just for people who don't want bank accounts, but people who, if crypto ever becomes actually more mainstream than it is and less of a sort of just a speculative currency, Facebook's got to be in there. As far as the bank's involvement, I assume that they're functioning as underwriter in some way. It's not that it's competing with what the bank does on a retail level, but they get a piece of that pie, right?
Yeah, they probably not so much underwriting, but making money off the transfers in and out. Banks providing the currency conversion, they could take a cut of those transactions and make a lot of money. Because remember, banks are not just retail banks. Banks are also and more so international finance transfer and all of that. And especially in areas where Facebook wants to grow, there are a lot of people who don't have bank accounts and can't have bank accounts. And this would be a way for Facebook to not only give them a lot of the functions of a bank, which a lot of startups are trying to do, but also get them in their ecosystem, which is something WeChat in China has showed is a great method of growth and monetization. And we see a lot of companies in Southeast Asia and India copying that kind of business plan. We just don't see it in the United States as much. SpaceX successfully launched and deployed 60 satellites as part of its Starlink project to deliver gigabit internet to the world. This is the first non-test launch in a series that plans to build up 12,000 satellites in low Earth orbit for worldwide coverage by the mid-2020s. The satellites weigh about 227 kilograms, have multiple high-throughput antennas, include electric propulsion to help achieve and maintain proper positioning by expelling charged atoms of krypton, so they'll keep Superman out too. OneWeb launched its first 6 satellites toward a similar service in February, so now SpaceX jumps in front of them with 60, and Amazon still plans to launch 3,200 satellites for its Project Kuiper internet service, so they're third in the race right now.
So 60 satellites isn't going to do a whole lot, but 12,000 satellites would make an impact. And I know that we sort of joke about, hope all those companies, once they get all the satellites up that they need, the satellites won't run into each other. But if you are covering the entire Earth, if all goes well, how do they figure that out?
Yeah, that is not a joking matter. SpaceX says they have some technology built into the satellites to kind of detect if something's about to collide with them and get out of the way.
Right.
But that problem, as all of these services need to have a couple of thousand to be able to provide any kind of coverage, that's going to become a more crowded orbit. Now, granted, there's a lot of space up there. Like it gets bigger as you get farther from the Earth.
Exactly.
So you don't want to minimize that, but also these things are moving around. They're not all geostationary, and so collisions are a problem, especially because one collision then creates a bunch of pieces that make it more probable that there will be further collisions.
I also wonder how they're going to interoperate, if at all, in terms of, they're going to be close to one another. Is it going to be like cell phone carriers that have to cooperate so that when you go from one entity's sphere of influence to another, how's that going to work? And I've never heard the satellite reference in terms of its weight. So that's sort of fascinating to me. Now I know what a satellite weighs. I presume that's a pretty small satellite. And you're right.
Yeah,
space
these
is
are
kind of vast. So that may not necessarily mean that their collision risk is lower, but it does mean they've got a lot more to work with. It's not like some sort of building size thing floating around up there in the sky.
Correct. And we only have a few hundred satellites in orbit right now, and there's already collision issues. So this is something they're going to have to deal with. This is also in low Earth orbit, is another thing to consider. And the last thing, to your point about communication, one thing that SpaceX did say is future versions of these satellites will have more functions, including the ability to talk to each other while in orbit. So they could be able to handle transferring data from one satellite to another as the system gets built up.
I mean, selfishly, I'm like, faster internet for me, but really, it's so many underserved areas of the Earth currently in all over the world, really. So yeah. I'm cautiously optimistic about how this will improve internet access for all. Best Buy is canceling pre-orders of the Samsung Galaxy Fold because Samsung has not set a new release date. AT&T had put up a June 13th date, but has since taken that down. Samsung was reported to have a fix for the phone and had said at the beginning of this month it would have a new release date in the coming weeks, but the company also said at the time it would cancel pre-orders itself on May 31st if customers no longer wish to wait, in compliance with U.S. law.
Well, it doesn't look good, does it?
Yeah, it's May 24th. So
yeah, I don't have much to add to this other than, wow, okay, well, if Best Buy is pulling out, they probably heard something or know something, and they're like, yeah, we don't need to wait till May 31st.
I was surprised they were still taking pre-orders. I thought it was kind of like, we'll be back when we get it right.
Oh yeah, they were not taking pre-orders anymore. That's a good point. They were only saying those who made the pre-orders before.
Oh, I see. I got it.
We aren't canceling them yet
Hmm.
until May 31st when they have to. And now Best Buy is like, yeah, you know, we're just going to cancel the pre-orders from the people who ordered from us. I think we want to back out of this. The China Railway Rolling Stock Corporation showed off its latest prototype maglev train that can reach speeds of 600 kilometers per hour. Sarah, that's 373 miles per hour.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, kilometers make no sense to me.
It would theoretically be able to go from Beijing to Shanghai in 3.5 hours, which if you're like, I don't know how far it is from Beijing to Shanghai, it takes a jet 4.5 hours to fly from Beijing to Shanghai. That's not security or taxing. That's 4.5 hours to fly a jet, 3.5 hours to take this train. Now, the jet actually has a top speed faster than the train, but the train just gets to its speed faster and can stay there. This would be faster than the fastest commercial maglev service right now, which reaches 431 kilometers per hour on its run between Shanghai's airport and the city center. And Japan holds the world's speed record with a prototype train that reached 603 kilometers per hour. So I don't know, this new maglev train might be able to squeeze out a few more kilometers and top that one too.
I like fast trains. I hope it works out.
Yeah, same. Yeah. If you can, if air travel is often necessary because there's just sort of no way to drive there otherwise, or take a train or whatever, or you don't have the time. But to be able to get on a train, which is infinitely easier than getting on a plane anywhere in the world, and it be an hour quicker, is just music to my ears. Even though it's nowhere near where I live, it would be something I would want to go and just experience between Beijing and Shanghai.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just jealous. I would like this kind of train travel and the ease of boarding that currently goes with train travel. So yeah, that would be nice. And if it's actually faster across the terrain, I don't know. That feels like a pretty cool thing to me.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people like flying, but trains are where it's at. More trains.
More trains.
Unless you're a satellite. Yandex, Russia's largest tech company, is launching a delivery service. This is a very interesting one in Moscow and St. Petersburg to start, called Yandex NV, the N and the V, but sounds like NV, that lets customers tell a restaurant what they want cooked, even if it's not on that restaurant's menu. Then NV, which the company calls a cloud restaurant, will prepare meal kits from a customer's chosen ingredients from hundreds of dishes and then send it to a nearby restaurant to cook it up. A Yandex courier will then deliver the finished dish. You might recall back in 2017, Yandex merged with Uber's Russian arm. So Yandex also has its ride-hailing service and also Yandex Eats that works like Uber Eats, delivering cooked food from restaurants, and also Yandex Chef supplies meal kits for home cooking. So this is sort of like it's a trifecta.
Yeah, you can't just tell them your recipe. It has to be one of the recipes from Yandex Chef.
Yes, although they say that includes hundreds of dishes.
Okay,
which
so
no restaurant is going to have.
It's a much bigger menu. But yeah, I can't just make up like, I want kipper snacks and brown rice. And they're like, we don't have a meal kit for that, Tom. Just go make that yourself. That's what you eat for lunch.
Right, which you probably should.
Which is what I ate for.
And then you don't have to pay a delivery fee. But
it will be like, oh, the French restaurant that only has 15 things on its menu could make you some borscht if it didn't have it on the menu because Yandex Chef has the supplies. And so Yandex Chef brings the supplies to the restaurant cooks it, and then Yandex Eats delivers it from the restaurant to you.
Yeah, so it's like you think of a restaurant menu. It's if you're Cheesecake Factory, you probably have hundreds of items on your menu, but most restaurants don't. So you say like, I just want this thing, but I don't know, I just can't find it anywhere. But then you don't want to just necessarily sign up for Yandex Chef because that's prepared meals where it's limited. Yeah. And that's sort of part of the deal is that you pay a premium for, these dishes. So if you don't want either of those things, Yandex is like, well, okay, all of these folks can work with each other anyway, and the courier will just bring it to you.
I guess I wonder what's in it for the restaurant. If you're that French restaurant, do you really want to make borscht? Do you have a couple of people over off to the side who are just doing the meal kit prep? I mean, the one scenario I can think of is everybody wants Italian food, but one wants kung pao chicken, and the restaurant gets the business anyway. I don't know. It just seems a little convoluted. Even in the explanation, I was sort of like, wait, what? They're going to do what? They're trying to cover all their bases, but it seems confusing.
Yeah, I mean, I think to simplify it from the customer end, it'll be, oh, I like what Yandex Chef has. I don't want to cook it. Let me order it, and then it will be cooked and delivered to me, right? I don't have to know what restaurant is cooking it necessarily.
So you may have a business that specializes in that. Like you've got a commercial kitchen, and there's an area where that they essentially, rent out and hire people for the night to prep meal kit food.
Yeah, that's why they call it a cloud restaurant. But this
Yeah.
Bloomberg story does imply that regular restaurants that you can also order other things from will be doing this. And that's where Roger, whose family was in the restaurant business for years, Roger was wondering, like, okay, how do you work that into the assembly line of a
Right.
well-functioning
Yeah,
kitchen?
a restaurant doesn't have you can't. I mean, broadly, yeah, you can tell when the busy cycle is, right? When around 6 to 8, that's when people are eating dinner. Lunch is usually from like 11:30 till 1:30. But you don't know if you're going to have a rush. And if you have a rush, that means that order, does it come first before someone who sat in your restaurant and is waiting for their, whatever lunch special? Or do you just wait until all those customers are taken up, then you move on to the meal kit? And also, not if you have different kitchens preparing the food, it's going to taste different. You're not going to have the
Exactly.
same. You're not going to have the same quality control, or at least taste control that you would. Like, oh, I really love this borscht, but it turns out it's only made the way you like it from this one kitchen. If they send it to any of the other kitchens or restaurants,
Borscht tastes
Well,
like pizza. Oh wait,
I think part of this is probably that you don't know what kitchen's cooking the meal, because if you like a certain restaurant, then you probably like something on the menu already, and you're probably not going to want to take advantage of this specifically. You're taking advantage of which sounds like low prices and the convenience of just not having to cook anything, but not getting too crazy. So I don't know. What if a restaurant is closed on Sundays, and everybody who's making prep meals for Yandex goes over there, and they're actually, it's more of a quality control, because I don't know if that's the case, but I could see that happening where the restaurant is not really very impacted at all.
To me, the itch it feels like it scratches is my local grocery store has a lot of prepared meals, and they're quite good. And you pay, $7, $10 or whatever, and so it's affordable, and you can count on the quality, and you can see what you're going to order, and you're going to take it home, and you don't have to cook it. All you have to do is heat it up, because I can't imagine that some specific recipe is going to get people all excited, but they would look at a list and they go, yeah, salmon and asparagus, that sounds pretty good. That's pretty simple to make. It's not something I have an attachment to from a specific restaurant. All right, let's let these guys make it for me.
yeah, there was a great quote from one of the Yandex officials in the Bloomberg story that home style and simple food is getting traction online, like borscht, meat cutlets with mashed potatoes, and Hawaiian poke. One of those traditional Russian dishes.
Hey, poke, worldwide phenom.
Right, man.
It's a thing.
I'm with
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
Folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. All right, Microsoft Build, Google I/O, lots of companies out there claiming to try to improve accessibility. How are they doing, Shelly?
It's interesting because all of the big companies, and I'll include Apple too, they've got their developers conference coming up. All the big companies are doing really different things with accessibility, but they're all doing things, which is exciting.
Okay,
There's
that's
there's
good.
a there's a weird way in which they're almost competing on accessibility, because I mean there's the sort of story stuff where Satya Nadella gets up and talks about his child who is deaf or has a hearing impairment, and other CEOs or people from tech companies tell the story. And I always cringe at that, because I'm like, okay, show me the product, show me the tools that you're making. But but the keynotes at Microsoft Build and Google I/O both included mentions of accessibility, which were followed up with more detailed either product announcements, or in the case of Google, a lot of look at this cool thing we can do, which may or may not become a product. But it really feels like there's a way they're kind of trying to one up each other, and there's enough of it that's in the product category as opposed to the moonshot category, that it feels like they're not just doing that. They're not just competing for the brownie points or the feel good points, but they're actually making stuff. And interestingly enough, Apple, which especially in the mobile space has had a lead for a while, I feel like it's time for them to do a little catching up.
You know, I was listening to BBC World Service this morning, and they had someone from a charity called Scope on talking about this. And one of the things she kept repeating was that it is difficult for people to book a flight because travel sites often are not accessible, or airplane sites are not accessible. It sounds like you're a little more positive about things in general than that.
Well, I don't know. I would agree with that about the flights.
Okay. All right.
And it's because, for one thing, people use so many different travel sites. I actually have friends who have consulted with airlines, both on it's the site stuff and also traveling through airports and, all the stuff that you have to deal with to fly. Imagine doing that with a disability and saying, oh, no, I don't need a wheelchair. I have a visual impairment. If you could just steer me to the right place, that would be great. And also, I'd like to buy my ticket myself. Please just let go of my arm. I'd like to do that. So there's still issues, certainly on a practical level, but there's a language you can speak in terms of to make the site accessible, to make the app accessible. There are standards one can obey. And the WCAG standards and the ARIA standards that govern web accessibility and the compliance with VoiceOver or Android accessibility within those mobile platforms, that's a start. And so you say to somebody at an airline or at a travel site, are you compatible with those standards? Yes. Okay, but you just added a new feature that's not compatible. Your new fancy dancy. Let me show you the seats before you choose them, because now they cost you $50 extra. You might as well see them. Oh, well, that popover isn't accessible. It's that kind of stuff that happens.
So would it be fair to say that we're seeing improvement from the tech companies in developing products? We're seeing, but we still have a lot of ways to go in implementing this across the web.
Yeah, I think so, because it's less about what the companies that build the tech tools that we use provide, and more about how they're implemented by, your department store, your restaurant site. And they're notorious, by the way, because restaurant sites love Flash, and Flash is it's not so bad anymore, but it's that kind of thing. There's like, and as I say, there are people who do nothing but audit for web accessibility. Unfortunately, there's a lot of legal action in that area, and there are certainly people who are the equivalent of patent trolls who go out and file suits to try and win some money. But there are a lot of people who legitimately can't do the business that they want to do because a website hasn't been made fully accessible. And that's not something that Apple or Microsoft or Google is going to be able to fix. They can say Chrome is accessible, Safari is accessible, we support the WCAG standards, we support all the web accessibility. Our HTML or our scripts are behaving well, but you decided to make something that doesn't comply with that.
So tell us some of the examples of things that you're seeing out there that are useful for you.
Sure. Well, and I guess, and again, some of it's moonshots, some of it's product stuff, but artificial intelligence is really playing a big role in accessibility. Microsoft and Google particularly have done really interesting tools. For example, this is not a new tool. Microsoft has a tool called Seeing AI, and just because it gives a real good demo that can actually evaluate what it's seeing around it, and can either read text, or it can do facial recognition, or it can do scene recognition. So, for example, you pointed around this room and it says, desk, chair, table. And again, that's not a new app, but it's adding capabilities. It's adding recognition of known people. Microsoft has a number of other AI initiatives that have to do with eye gaze, which is what somebody who doesn't have the use of their hands, but who would use some sort of head-mounted device. So they're using AI to sort of fill in the blanks of missing information. And some of those have come into products like Seeing AI or Google Outlook, but some of them are, they're what's cool about them is they're AI research projects. They make great AI research projects. Microsoft has given a whole bunch of money to developers who want to do AI research projects. It's a grant thing, and they're actually building, some really useful tools for people both with vision impairments and physical disabilities.
Now, I know you wanted to mention some developments in specific devices for assistive technology as well.
Yeah, so there's a conference called the CSUN Assistive Technology Conference. It's named for the California university that sponsors it, the California State University at Northridge has an accessibility, an assistive technology program, and they do an annual conference. And so just as you might go to CES or another conference that is a tech focus, that's where you go to learn about assistive technology. And I went this March, and one of the things that's really interesting, and I guess I kind of say this a lot because it happens in different ways. There is a commodification of that kind of technology. So used to, the only technology somebody with a disability might have access to is technology that was designed specifically for them. In other words, a braille display, a screen reader for a blind person. Now what's happening is those devices are being built with commoditized products. So they're using Android tablets, they're using standard LCD displays. So they're making them a lot less expensive. The nice thing about, for example, magnification systems that are based on Android or Windows Surface, or now even iPads, which is kind of a new odd wrinkle that happened this year, is that those devices are also available to the person with disabilities in their normal usage pattern. So you can use an iPad, or you can use an Android phone for the things that anybody would use it for, but you can also use it to do extreme magnification. You can do distance magnification so that you can see a blackboard across a room. You can scan text so that you can read your bills or your receipts. And all that stuff used to be sort of custom hardware, which made it really expensive. And now what they're doing is using those commodity products that, and Frank, and I asked the guy, I said, why would you take $1,000 iPad, which is a good deal more expensive than, say, an Android tablet? And several companies are doing this. I said, why would you do that? Why would you use a more expensive technology? And this, because people want them, because blind people want, they have a desire for a particular piece of technology just the way anybody does. And so they're meeting demand. And it's cool that those options exist.
Well, before we wrap this up, I want to mention a site that I heard on that same BBC interview I was talking about, and get your thoughts on it. I emailed it to you earlier today. It's called bighack.org. And the idea is to give people a place to report, not in a mean way, but just to say, like, hey, I ran into this accessibility problem. And the Scope people who run it promise to collect that data and advocate with tech companies to fix those problems. What did you think of this?
It's an interesting idea. And I do think a lot of the issues for individuals with disabilities who encounter things that aren't accessible to them is a feeling of powerlessness. There's a feeling that I'm even with the Twitterverse now, where we can get in touch with the companies that we do business with. People feel like, well, how am I going to get that resolved? I don't want to be litigious. I don't want to go out, and I'm one person. I had a problem with a CAPTCHA. I had a problem with an app that had a popover that I couldn't, scroll away from. And hopefully this will provide some empowerment for individuals, and will also aggregate data in a way that can be presented to tech companies that will actually, show patterns and show, what's going on in a larger context. We know generally what accessibility and inaccessibility means, but what are like the specific granular bits of that we can fix?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Shelly, thank you so much for sharing your insight. This is something we need to hear more about, and I appreciate you being willing to come on and talk about it.
My pleasure. It was fun.
Absolutely. Also, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. If you haven't hung out there, it's a great time. Submit stories and vote on others. dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Also on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow.
Let's check in with Len Peralta and find out what he has been drawing during today's show. Len?
Well, I find assistive technology amazing. It's really cool. But I had to do this because I've got a little bit of shelf life with it. It's a little Game of Thrones take here. The latest in accessibility tech would be three-eyed Raven assistive devices. And the image is, of course, of Bran wearing what looks like a VR Raven headset, three-eyed Raven headset.
That's how he wargs into the Ravens. It's
I
just
think so.
augmented
No,
reality.
he can do it on his own. That's how we warg into the
That's how
Ravens.
we can be like Bran from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
That's great.
this is available right now. If you're a Patreon backer, patreon.com/Len. It's available for you right now, or you can get it the old-fashioned way through my online store at lenperaltastore.com.
Thanks to Shelly Brisbin for being with us. Shelly, you had so much good information. How can folks keep up with the rest of your fabulous work?
Well, you can subscribe to my podcast, which is Parallel. Every 2 weeks, I talk with both mainstream and accessibility tech-oriented folks. We talk about topics and we sprinkle some accessibility on top of it. So hopefully it's interesting for everyone. That's at relay.fm/parallel. You can also get my book on iOS accessibility at iosaccessbook.com.
Excellent. Thanks everybody for supporting this show. If you listen on the free feed, that's great. There's some ads that are put in at the top to pay for that, and that's awesome. But you could get it without ads. You can get some bonus episodes. We just put out our episode looking back at May 2014, the actual Daily Tech News Show lineups from 5 years ago, and talking about the craziness of some of those tech stories that were big stories back then and how they look now 5 years later. If you're a co-executive producer at the $10 a month level, you got that in your feed right now. Go check out what else is available by becoming a member at patreon.com/DTNS.
You know what we would like? We would like to read your emails. And we have an email address for you to do just that at feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're also live Monday through Friday. If you can join us, we'd love to have you. 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC. Find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
We're out for the holiday on Monday here in the US, but we'll be back on Tuesday with Robert Heron talking TVs. See you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Good show, you guys. Thank you, Shelly.
Hey, my pleasure. That went by really
Great
fast.
show.
It always does, right?
That was great.
I was
Yeah.
like, I had like specific stuff to hit, and then I was like, oh, time's almost. I mean, you know, that was me. That was just me not like getting to the point. But sorry
Oh,
about
no worries. No, not at all.
You're having a good discussion. That's what that means.
that.
Yeah, it was a good discussion and
Yeah.
a good reason to have you back because there's more to talk about.
Sure.
I think it's common when you're sort of like, gosh, I hope I have enough to say. And then you're like, oh,
really-
man, I needed like
did
5
feel
more
like
minutes.
because I mean, I have my
Yeah.
little things to hit over here, and I just like I said, I just got revved up. And you'd think I'd, as a podcaster, like be better about that, but there's no time limits on my show.
No, it's great.
For a while.
No, this was a good conversation though. And I
Yeah,
think
this
we
is
hit
your
the highlights
stuff.
really well.
Cool.
Don't
All right.
forget you can visit showbot.chatroom.net to see what the listeners or live listeners have been picking or selecting or offering as titles for the show.
Oh,
We have Mexican food from the Thai place via maglev train. As a fan of Victorian literature, I like this one: Sense and Accessibility.
Ah, nice.
That's good.
well done.
That's
That's
really
funny.
good.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Len's son. Tom pushes his metric agenda.
What's a kilometer? It's a neat word.
I hear it's delicious. It's like sausage right with paste.
Yeah, you can get one from
cool.
Yandex now.
Yeah.
Well, you can only get it in Canada, I thought.
That's right.
Canadian treat.
There's
If you
a
want
little
Tim
chip
Tams in it.
stand.
Tim Tams, the Australian cookie, only available in Canada.
Which is many kilometers from us right now.
I know.
There's a lot of space up there, which is a
Yeah.
direct quote.
Yeah.
Across
Yeah.
the ocean.
Should put some
I like
satellites
that.
over it.
Sense and
Yes.
accessibility. I think that's going to be.
Yes, it wins.
It wins.
That's a good one.
We need a good day in Torrent.
Lots of good submissions today.
I remember
You folks are fun.
Charlotte Bronte's Sense and Accessibility. Such a
Hmm. Yeah.
literature.
Great book. She
Yeah.
was wearing a VR headset magnified.
Rose. Three-eyed
Ah,
ravens
yeah.
can see really well. Everybody
Yes.
knows that. They got 3 eyes.
That's right.
I was gonna say, I think next time I'm invited on the show, I might show up with one of those 3-eyed VR headsets.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely. Good stuff. Thank you, chat room, irc.chatroom.net, live during the show. If you ever join us, that's the place that you can submit those titles. And if you're in the Discord, you can submit them there, and a kind soul will submit them over through the bot as well.
Did we pick one for GDI?
We have not picked one for GDI, and there were a lot of GDI suggestions. Google Len
Oh, there you go.
is one.
Yeah, I
whole
didn't get to Google Lens, which would have made it even funnier, but people know. People know.
Len knows your mother is another suggestion.
He is stopped, so I must have put him to rest.
Rin Tim Tams.
I was gonna say I was waiting for the Tim Tam reference. There
Yeah.
had to be.
A smattering of humans.
That's a good one.
Friday, I'm in love.
Smattering of Humans sounds like the next George R. R. Martin book.
Actually, wasn't that one of the Berganulo Fives albums? Smattering of Humans.
Smattering of, oh yes, oh my gosh, I saw them live on my 2 weeks off there.
Oh, good. How were they?
They were smattering. They were great.
There's summer appropriation jams. Another suggestion for the GDI.
A whole new world. One more notch. I like Len Knows Your Mother.
All right. Say hello to your mother for me.
I know your mother.
I know your mother. She is
that
actually a very kind woman. She's very nice. And I'd say that honestly. She's a very wonderful person.
Have you met my mother?
Even as you were saying that, I was looking at my phone and my mom is calling me. So
Oh no, that's hilarious. That's so
Mom,
weird.
I'm sorry to say Mom is not a DTNS listener or viewer. I'm sorry about that. But
Yeah,
perhaps
neither's mine, so it's okay.
Mom's not sure what I do, frankly.
Aren't you going to give her the box set for Christmas? No.
Of DTNS?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the guy who was listening via DVDs in his car, he might want the box set.
She's a big iPhone user. She makes great use of her iPhone. I showed her one time, like, oh, this is how you could get the show. She's like, oh, that's really nice. Yeah, she did.
Yeah, that's pretty much Mom's reaction to anything I do,
Yeah.
even including iOS accessibility. Once I pointed out to her that the things I was showing her to zoom in on her iPad because she had age-related macular degeneration, I said, this is in my book. She's like, I don't really care. Just show me how it works.
She's like, yeah, but I have you. I don't need to read your book.
Book.
Now watch me get an email from my mom tomorrow. Like, I was listening.
She's totally listening to you, Tom. And
My brother does. My brother might be watching. He watches and listens sometimes. Hey, Tim.
Tim Tam?
Tim Tom. Yeah.
Tom.
We're brothers. Yeah.
That's the Americanized version.
Yeah.
Made by Nestle.
Actually made by Diane.
I would not where I don't want to eat humans. We're getting weird now. I don't
A smattering of humans. Not
like I don't want to call Tom and Tim delicious. No thanks.
Not a cannibal. Hashtag not a cannibal.
It's sort of how I feel when people will be like, "Oh my God, what a cute baby! I just want to eat it," and I'm like, "That's odd.
Have you
It's
seen
an
a
odd
mouse?
thing to say."
There was
random about accessibility. So if you are dictating to iOS and you say #blessed or whatever it is you're going to say, it knows that hashtag is not a word that you want to type out. It's smart enough to just.
Oh, nice.
clever.
It's like, what
Yeah.
wonders modern technology give us?
So if I say #democracy hot dogs.
Yeah, you'll get what you want. Democracy.
So, and I've noticed this when I do sort of like speech to text, if for whatever reason I'm using that, which is not that often, but I've always wondered because like comma and period and stuff, but you're saying it all the time. What if you're writing out the word comma? What do you say to distinguish?
That's a good question. I don't often write out the word comma except when I'm writing my.
What if you were a grammar blogger or something?
Hockey writers, writing about the third period.
Oh yeah, right.
Very good point.
Mm-hmm.
Accessible hockey writers. Let us know.
Yep.
Feedback at
There's one-
Daily Tech News Show.
There you
Accessible
go.
copywriter out there somewhere.
It's got to be.
That's
Actually,
another song
it's
by the
funny
Berganulo Five.
I have a good friend who is in fact he's a developer. He's a blind guy and a musician and a developer, and for some reason a rabid hockey fan. I say for some reason because he grew up in LA and became a fan of the LA hockey team. And
Yeah, the
I
Kings.
just wonder how that happens. I don't know. I mean, hockey, LA, whatever. But
The Kings have been around for a while, and they had Gretzky for a while. Who's, if
Did they?
anybody
Oh,
knows a hockey player, it's usually Wayne Gretzky.
I thought he played all up at somewhere in Canada.
He played most of his career in Edmonton, and then he went to LA. He was actually on the Blues for like a half a season too, but he went to LA for the later part of his career. So I don't know. Yeah, there's Kings fans. My neighbors across the street are Kings fans.
Glad to hear it. I mean,
They
I said
exist.
I live in a state. We have a hockey team also, but it's like
Well, yeah, Dallas stole Minnesota's hockey team.
It never would have occurred to me to become a fan of that team.
The Austin had the Ice Bats. They were a minor league hockey team.
Lots
Yeah.
of good merch opportunities.
Yeah, I love the Ice Bats. Went to see a couple games there. Hockey's a thing. I'm telling you, it's coming back.
It is. My friends down here are super into the Kings.
There you go. See,
I'm just only thinking about the geography. Like, I have nothing against hockey relative to any other sport. I just imagine that if you grow up in Canada or the North, where one might play hockey in school or as a kid or whatever, that it would be more natural to become a fan.
Pond hockey.
Clearly, I'm wrong. So I'm glad to hear that even
Well,
LA.
you know, it's a great sport for the summer because you get to be indoors where it's like
cool.
ice.
Yeah.
That's a super good point.
Hockey, you know, the weird thing about hockey to me, because I grew up in St. Louis where it's cold enough to actually play hockey on ponds and stuff in the winter and everything. But or I grew up near St. Louis, not in St. Louis. But anyway, it's weird because the majority of the hockey teams are in the United States, but all the hockey players are Canadian. And the majority of the hockey fans are Canadian. But somehow the economics work that even a hockey team in the United States that doesn't have as many fans as it would have in a Canadian city makes enough money to keep the NHL going somehow. It's weird.
Well, especially if it's a large enough metro area, you can get enough. Like, hey, basketball season's over, baseball season's over, NFL. You have a way to kind of segue those fans into something else.
So he brings bacon, who's in the UK, says, my local ice hockey team used to have a lot of Canadian players. Canadians get everywhere. It's like sand.
Well, it used to be. Now there's a lot of Scandinavians and Central Europeans. Like,
Yeah,
I wonder, like, from Eastern European, the Balkans,
Eastern Europeans too, for sure.
I know because their names are difficult for my sportscasters to pronounce sometimes, and hockey players from not here.
Yeah, they'll have ski at the end of their name.
Or Czech.
Yeah, or they're Polish, which means they just are all consonants, and it's not spelled in any way related to a way we would try to pronounce it. Krzyzewski, Krzy, like, okay. One of those things.
What are your plans for this weekend? Anything? Holiday weekend here in the United States?
I think a friend of mine's having a barbecue, so that'll be fun. But I mean, otherwise, it's pretty mellow. No big plans.
I gotta visit my folks so they can see their grandkids.
Are you going up north?
Yeah, you make it like north like a couple hours. 3 hours.
Well, on your I mean, no, I'm not trying to. I thought they still lived like a 7-hour drive away.
They play hocky up there. It's so
no, it's shorter now.
Oh, okay.
Now you have a maglev train to go that way. Go there.
It's like 4 or 5 hours, depending on how fast I put.
It's like Shanghai to Beijing on a maglev train.
Yeah. I should just have one of those. You know, that's the thing. I was hoping there would be a convenient train ride because it's in the Central Valley. So, you know, there are train tracks that run down, but no, they all end up in Union Station in downtown LA, even though
that's my thing. Like for Comic-Con, people are like, oh, just take the train, you know, because it leaves you right by the convention center. I'm like, yeah, but I have to spend half the journey getting to the LA to Union Station. Like it doesn't make any sense. All right. Well, we're going to say goodbye to the video, folks. Thanks again for watching. Live, folks, don't forget, June 3rd, twitch.tv/gooddayinternet. We'll be moving over there. And Roger, do we have any tests happening that we can tell people about right now or no?
No, that I know
there are some tests planned, but Roger will tell you once we know when they are.
Yeah. Once I square that circle, we're just maybe do 1 or 2 just to ensure that everything we found out is in fact true.
So twitch.tv/gooddayinternet. And if you're a YouTube viewer not live, don't worry. Things will show up the way they always do in the future as well. Thanks, everybody. Audio folks, stick around. There's more to come.